Welcome back, everybody, to this Tableau for FIRST Robotics video course presented by FRC Team 2834. Today we're going to be looking at some advanced charts, and there are a lot of different advanced charts we're going to be looking at, so this is going to be part one. So let's get started. So last time we made some really cool charts using one dimension and one measure. We used team number and we used the sum of auto low port scores for a team. And we were able to make some really nice charts. We made some things with asterisks and different shapes. We were also able to make bar charts. And we can change the colors of those bar charts. We can do a lot of cool things with one dimension and one measure. But where things start getting a little more difficult and a little more advanced, but also a little more worthwhile, is when you use multiple dimensions and multiple measures on the same chart. So we're going to look at using multiple measures today on the same chart. So first I'm going to create a new worksheet. Remember from last time, you click on this plus sign right here. It's called sheet number 2. I'm going to right click and rename it multiple measures. Alright, so for this specific chart, I want to look at both a team's teleop low port scoring and teleop outer port scoring on the same chart. Let's take a look at how we can do that. So first thing we know we need to do is drag team number into either rows or columns. We're going to do columns, create a vertical chart this time. And we're going to take our first measure, teleop low port, and we're going to drag it into the rows table. Alright, here we go. We're going to sort it descending. And we already know how to do this from the last video. That's great. Now let's try and add our outer port measure. The first thing you might think to do is add it to the rows table up here. Okay, good. We can see both a chart for the low port scoring and a chart for the outer port scoring. But they're kind of divided. They're not very easy to look at. If we start to sort them, we can't really see both of them sorted well at the same time. So there's a better way to do this, and I'm gonna drag out the outer port scoring so we can go back to where we were. Let's instead try dragging outer port scoring to our dependent variable axis. And what we should get is these two green bars. If you're up in this square, you're going to get one green bar. That's not what you want. You want to go outside of this square and get these two green bars. So I'm going to let go. Here we go. Now we have side-by-side bars of teleop low port and teleop outer port. Our two measures are being shown in side-by-side bars. This is improving. We're getting a little better, and things are being condensed a bit more. They're much easier to look at. However, when we go to sort this, the sorting isn't as simple because it can only sort by one of these measures at a time. It can't just take both of them at the same time. So we're going to have to take it a step further. One thing I need to point out is when we dragged our teleop outer port scoring over to this dependent axis, we got this measure values pill up here, and then the pills that we originally had up here went down to this new box that showed up called measure values. Measure values is basically a folder that contains all of these measure values when we start to use more than one. So it makes it very easy for us to drag in, say I wanted to see inner port as well. I can just drag it into this measure values box and it'll add it as a third bar. I don't need to look at three of them though, so I'm going to take that out. Okay, so we can see both of our measures very clearly, but let's make it a little more clear. What if I want to see the combined total of teleop low port scoring and teleop outer port scoring? Well, there's an easy way to do that. I'm going to drag this measure names pill that appeared over to color. Here we go. Now we have what's called a stacked bar chart. This is a bar chart where one measure is stacked on top of another measure. We can see right here outer port scoring, and then we can see right here the inner port scoring. Combined, they are totaled, but we can also see them individually by highlighting them with our cursor. We can click on the color button here, edit colors, and we're allowed to edit the colors of each of our measures in any way we choose. Say I want yellow and blue, go blue. There we go. Okay, what if I don't want to see the combined total of teleop low and outer port scoring? What if I just want to see them individually, but I still want to sort them by color? Well, if you do a bar chart, it's automatically going to stack them and make it a total. So instead, we need to click on this drop-down menu, and let's say we do a shaped chart, and we do circles. There we go. Now we no longer have a sum, but we have the individual scoring. So for instance, this team scored 0 in the outer port and 20 in the inner port. We can see each of these points individually, but it's not like a bar where these are stacked on top of each other and we see the sum. So that makes it a bit easier to look at, and we can also change the colors. We know by clicking here we can change the shape. Let's say we go back to those asterisks that we love. And what are some other things we can do? Well, we can take this measure names, and we don't have to just sort them by color. Let's say we drag measure names into size. Now everything's the same color, but instead the size of the asterisk is what differentiates between the measures. So the larger one is going to be outer port scoring, and the smaller one is going to be inner port scoring. We can also sort by shape, and now the circles are going to be inner port or outer port scoring, and lower port scoring, and the squares are going to be outer port scoring. So you're probably catching along here. Color, size, and shape are these different ways that we can differentiate between our measure values. So once again, the measure values are what we put in here, the two different measures that we want to look at on the same chart. But in order for us visually to see two different measures separately while still being condensed, we need to sort them in a way, whether that's by making them different shapes or making them different colors or making them different sizes. So this is one of the easier ways to put multiple measures on the same chart. And next time we're going to look at putting multiple dimensions on the same chart.